Hello and welcome to another episode of Sisters on the Weekend. She is Lois's.
And she's Big Sis, and we back with another episode.
Another episode for you guys. So, Lois, can you take us away with today's topic?
Okay, so today's topic is boundaries when it comes to sisterhood. So we have some communication boundaries for y'all, we have some emotional boundaries for y'all, and we have some capacity boundaries for y'all.
Okay, so what I thought about with this topic, just boundaries, the main thing I think about is what you not finna do is. Just like a general, just to get the thoughts flowing. When I think boundaries in all relationships are healthy. I think that relationships that are just wide open, I think it can lead to resentment. When I say wide open, that means that like you're just expected to be there anytime, any place, for everything. It can lead to, you putting too much pressure on people in different situations. Because we all have our own lives, we all have our own issues, but I do think that it's something very unique about a sisterhood in which you can call on her at any time. But despite that, I do think that we have to learn how to best be sisters in a sisterhood, and that does include some boundaries. So, with regards to communication boundaries, what does that bring up for you, Lois?
I guess topics and things that you're open to talk about. In another previous episode, I believe we mentioned like sometimes people are more open with their friends or etc. because they feel like less judgmental, or they feel there's no repercussions to what they're saying because nobody's going to go back and tell their parents, etc. I would say for communication, I would definitely say the topics that you want to discuss, there should be a boundary there, and then the way in which you communicate should be the boundary. So we also spoke about in a previous episode physical altercations being some people's way of communication, also yelling, etc. So we discussed that prior to.
When I think about communication boundaries, I think about kind of like the way that you communicate in particular, not necessarily the topics, but I think about and this is just my opinion, like the way in which you communicate. Like, are you communicating in a way that your sister finds offensive, even if you absolutely mean no harm? So like some people play too much. Some people joke too much. If you constantly correcting or judging what your sister is doing, this is something I had to work on. So even if you mean well, the way that you present stuff can be an issue, because we know communication is not just what you say and what your intent is, it's the way that it's received by the audience. Tone,
and that's
all
something that I had to work on, like tone or facial expressions, etc.
Yes.
So those are different. Even body language. Somebody talking to you, and you seemingly to presenting that you're bored, bored with your body.
A lot of things, because everybody has feelings, and so I think sometimes in sisterhoods or close relationships you can get a little comfortable, and you're like, oh, they know what I mean, or they know I would never this or that. But I think it's still part of just being a person, where it's important for you to try to hold yourself accountable and be aware of what triggers or limits or whatever it is with the person you communicate with. But that's something that comes with time, and also openness to correction or understanding. Because I'm sorry, but I do not like that. Oh, that's just the way I am. You can keep that. You really can keep that, because I don't want to hear that. if you have to adjust and mold yourself, I'm being for real. Like this part, I'm getting for real in this episode. If you can, I'm sorry, this hitting the nerve, girl. If you can mold yourself and fit yourself for your job, for all of the other responsibilities you have in your life that's outward facing, then you can make adjustments to make your people in the closest relationships with you more comfortable. And that's just facts.
Oh, also another communication boundary. You don't have to always answer your phone, or you don't always have to be available. So I just wanted to mention that.
And so I think that's a boundary just for everybody. But that also includes your sister. Now, if you get called like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times and, you know, it's urgent, then that changes the dynamic. But if you know it's just a chit chat, you know, sometimes. And so that happens with us all, especially if you are the type of person who's engaged and you're going to have a conversation, you're going to give your opinion, you're going to give thoughts, you're going to talk, you're going to laugh. You might be sleepy. Or catch this, you literally might not want to talk. You not wanting to talk doesn't make you a bad person. Like, we gotta accept that too. Sometimes there's absolutely,
like, if I call, they better answer, or you know,
I've had
people
that,
have that entitlement about them, especially
and it's
when
exhausting.
It comes to siblings, family, spouses, partners.
It's exhausting.
Whatever. Yeah.
It's exhausting. So, again, you already have to do that for work. You don't get to not. Like, I don't feel like going to this meeting right now. Like, you can, but you can only do it but a few times before it becomes a problem. So I think with us having to show up and be without much flexibility, typically, because there are some jobs that really, or some, you know, employers that may be more flexible with the work-life balance and give you your personal time as needed. But you already have to be 100% in different settings and different situations. So when it's time to decompress, or it's like you're at home and it's your personal time, it's important.
And I think that should be communicated, not just ghosting them or just not responding. Mm-hmm. Or like, sometimes people do this thing too. They temporarily block people so that they won't get their phone calls or whatever.
One thing I know that I see some of my friends do that I think is great, and I don't even know if my phone does it. I think I might have it. Because I have like a time where I request that I get off my phone, like a no screen time window of time. But also some of my friends, they'll put their phone on silent. So when you go to text them at a certain time, you'll get the notice that their phone is on sleep mode or silent.
Oh, that's nice.
So you should know that they're not going to respond. Even if they see it, they're not going to get a notification right away, and they might not respond. But you can set it at any time of day. So I think people may do it like if they're in meetings or if they're at a whatever. But I mean, hey, you could just do it in general. And that could be like a subtle note.
People should be able to communicate when they want, but what is your thoughts on I text you but you're on social media?
I think
like I see you're active on one platform but you can't text me back. Like,
I mean, maybe the person going to get back around. I think,
or maybe like the person don't want to talk to you, like you said prior to. They just don't.
Maybe they just don't want to respond to what you.
Right.
And that's one thing about social media. That's one thing about like email and all these different things where it's like, oh, you here, so why can't you be here? No, It don't work like that. I'm in my skin. That's where I'm at, and that's the only place I have to be. And I don't have to tend to. I feel like that's a pretty self-absorbed view of life. Because what if the person is on social media posting, or what if they sitting enjoying?
I'm about to say, if they may be just on there for entertainment. That means they're interacting with other people or etc. Yeah.
And I'll get back to you.
Right.
The fact that you
I know
for real. The fact that you picked up your phone, said doop 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 doop, hit send, does not mean that I have to pick up my phone, go doop 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 within the same. And sometimes it's that, and sometimes it's not that. I could be doing anything in the world, So I think we need to take a step back, and you don't clock people's time, like that becomes weird to me. Now it's different if it's like, I think you can take it as a sign the person don't want to be involved or don't want to be bothered if like you've been seeing them on social media for days and they never got back. Okay, that's pretty obvious. But I think you get your feelings hurt when you dig too deep into what people are doing or why they're doing it, this, that. You gotta think there was a time when you called the person, it was house phones. Literally, they were there or they were not. And you left a voicemail or tell such and such to call me back, and then you will wait for them to call you back. And then if they didn't call you back, you might see them out like, oh girl, I tried to call you, did I? Oh girl, I couldn't. So now we have, and we obviously had the beepers too, but the cell phones, smartphones, everything is so instant. Like if you had your phone, you got my message. I remember one time with the work, there was a situation where like an urgent thing happened overnight with the system that I was responsible for, and I didn't see it till the next morning. What I typically would do is I would log off at 5 or 6, and I would check my email again like around 8 or 9, and then I would check it again in the morning when I first wake up. And so this happened after my last nightly check-in. And I kind of felt a little bad, and I expressed it to one of my coworkers. I was like, oh, like I completely missed this, because she handled it. And she shared that sentiment with my supervisor there. Don't know why. But he was like, yeah, why didn't you, he made a comment to something to the extent of, you didn't see the emails, or you didn't. And I was like, no, I don't let email notices come to my phone. He was like, oh. I was like, yeah, I'll let the messaging platform that we use can come to my phone. So the equivalent of someone texting me, or phone calls, obviously, because if it's something urgent, you're going to call. It's not going to be I'm going to just wait around. You're going to ping me, or you're going to call. So those are things that come, but I didn't think it was necessary to receive every single email notification. Also, because of my role, I would have people reaching out to me from around the globe. So you can imagine me getting notifications at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. And then the system, I would get emails from the system as well. So I just thought it was in best practice not to have that. But just to wrap that story up, the thought from my supervisor at the time was that if an email was sent, you should have got it, and you should have got it when it was sent. And that's not always how, you gotta have those boundaries. That's complete and total burnout. Imagine all of the different people that expect you to be available to them whenever they come to the conclusion that they want your attention. That's exhausting. At any given time, and for some people this is just work, at any given time they can have 20 different people, or 50 or 100 or 150 or whatever, coming needing something on top of your personal relationships. And then when you take a social media break, then your sister texting you saying, why are you on Instagram, why you know what I'm saying? So it's like it's giving anxiety. So, but yeah, that's my thoughts on communication. I wanted to move to emotional boundaries. And when I think about that, I think it's important for us to check in with each other. Like, how are you feeling? And then also, kind of seeing if people are able to take on your mess, for lack of a better term. Sometimes you just need the support, boom. But if it's an ongoing complaint or ongoing drama, I do think it's important to check in. And that's something that I have become aware of, from experiencing one side of it, and then also being a person that is, reaching out for help. Do you have any thoughts on emotional boundaries?
No, I agree. Definitely, just check in on each other. And I feel like emotional is kind of like more like communication as well. Like, just realizing that sometimes your sister might not want to tell you everything. Maybe she's not telling you everything because she's trying to protect your feelings as well. And just You're going to take it personal, but just try not to take it personal. But you're going to take it personal.
What I'm learning about relationships, including sisterhood, close relationships, is so important to, what am I trying to say? I don't want to say, it's another word for this, but I'm drawing a blank. Step back. I was about to say humble yourself, but it's another way in which I wanted to frame that, but I can't. I'm drawing a blank. But basically, make it about you and then don't. So think about yourself, because naturally you're going to be like, well, I feel like this. And then take a step all the way back before you approach it. And I think you'll have a better outcome. Take a step all the way back. Another thing, no is not a curse word. No should not offend you. And I think we all should be able to say, no, thank you, or I can't now. And some people do it in a more subtle way, like maybe next time, or I'm not feeling well, or whatever. But it really actually doesn't matter. And I think at one time in my life, I used to get offended when people would say no, because I would never say no. So I'm like, well, if I would never say no to you, like that. But you have to respect that people are different. And it's actually admirable that someone is able or bold enough to respectfully decline or respectfully say no, because they're honoring themselves. So there's no glory in honoring other people to your own detriment. So that goes into like people pleasing. Just because you think it's a good fit for me don't mean I think it's a good fit for me. Just because you want me to do this doesn't mean that I am capable, or I'm able, or sometimes I just might actually not want to. And that don't mean I love you any less. But obviously if it's a dire situation, you're like, oh, like I'm there. But if it's something that can roll over to another day or another week, or we can work it out, because I do also want to highlight that close relationships are about sacrifice. So there very much so will be things that you don't want to do, and it's okay, and vice versa. But yeah, that's my thought on emotional boundaries.
I think you summed it up well. I have nothing.
Okay, and then capacity. I feel like that, all of these gel together really well. Capacity, I just can't do it right now. Mental, might be I'm going through something, or I have a test this week, so no, I can't actually
but also,
talk to you for 2 hours about.
Just don't want to, Sometimes they just don't want to take it on. Yeah.
And that's respect, right?
This is like, all of these topics are interesting because we're given at each scenario a reason, but sometimes there is no reason.
There is no reason. Now, how outrageous. So, like, I am known in my family for doing flyers or creative works. I never said no when I've been asked, because I like to do it. 2, I know that it's important, and that's the role that I've decided to take. But if somebody asks and I said no, it should be respected. But we know
people gonna want a reason.
I'm not talking about my family in particular, but it's like, oh, why? So let's check ourselves, and let's check.
And I know I'm the why type person too. I question everything down to a T. So I mean, it's about self-reflection as well. But honestly, it's really, for me, it's curiosity. I just want to learn, know the way people think, or what's stopping you from doing it. Not because I'm saying you should do it, but to say oh, what else is going on in your life? But I can see how it can come off oh, you're why you keep questioning. But it really be my genuine curiosity behind it. But
I mean, I get it too, because it can go both ways. Because one thing I do know about my family, if I said no, they probably would be like, "Are you okay?" I think that would be the next thing. Like, oh, okay. And there, I really appreciate. There's also a respect of my busyness. It's always an ask. are you able to? This is what I'm requesting. Are you able to? And you'll be surprised how far a question can go beyond just a request. I mean, or like a you know what I'm trying to say. Like, we need this, or like a demand, a question versus a demand. And also, another thing that I wanted to share with regards to these boundaries and stuff, when people feel appreciated and respected and honored, and you show that you respect their time or you appreciate them, what they're giving, I think that that makes for a better relationship as well.
I agree with that, yeah.
Like, thank you for taking out this time. I know this is a lot. Are you able to talk to me really quick? I'm feeling really bad about this. And then try to be mindful of the time. If you know, like, okay, I'll talk to you later. You know, it's been 30 minutes or it's been 15 minutes or whatever. All those things matter. So, I guess that's my thoughts on that. You guys want to share any boundaries? We touched on communication, emotional incapacity, but I'm sure there's more that you guys probably could think of, or different scenarios you might want to share with us. We look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Sisters on the Weekend. And little sis, do you have anything you want to share before we head out?
Make sure you review and repost this episode. It helps a lot. And thank you for listening.
We'll see you in the next one, guys. Bye.